Here.
Mr. Barbarella.
Present.
Mr. Delovich. Mr. Dickon.
Here.
Mrs. Mahan.
Present.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Here.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Here.
Mr. Spindell. And Mr. Van Zyl.
Here. Mr. Spindell will not be here tonight due to unforeseen circumstances. The New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to advance notice of, attend meetings of, public bodies of which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted on. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Fairfield Board of Education discloses notice of this meeting in public by having a date, time, and place thereof, distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Board of Education Administrative Office, and sent to the Burger Record and the Star Ledger. The announcement posting for the regular meeting, along with date, time, and place thereof, is distributed on January 18, 2022. The items to be discussed during the closed work session of July 28th. They include personal matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations, and more grievances, and tactics and techniques utilized for protecting public safety and property. Results of these discussions will be made public as soon as possible. Join the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, turn the meeting over to Mr. Norcia, and we're going to have a presentation by Dr. Gripp. And Nick, take it away.
Good evening, everyone. Dr. Gripp, can you hear me okay?
I can.
All right, great. Thank you. Everybody welcome Dr. Gripp, Richard Gripp, statistical forecasting, who has done many demographic reports for us here in Fairfield. Before I turn it over to Dr. Gripp, you know what? Why don't, since he's here waiting, we'll do the demographic report, and then we can come back to the superintendent comments in a little while to speak about CUSAC and the school calendar. But since he's here waiting, we conducted a demographic report as part of our long-range facility plan, which is required by the state of New Jersey. We had a demographic report done several years ago. We think this is a great time. It was a great time for us to conduct the demographic report. You will see in the presentation tonight how detailed it is with our numbers that are based off of our October 15th snapshot, if that is correct. And we, many other formulas and factors that went into the report. When Dr. Gripp is done presenting, we will open it up for questions. And then after Dr. Gripp is finished with that, he does not have to stay for the remainder of the meeting. And then the administration will talk about some things that we're thinking about and recommendations. And I have a little presentation as well to talk about, based off of the findings and what direction we think we're going in Fairfield. So without further ado, Dr. Gripp, I turn it over to you.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And please tell me if you are seeing a presentation saying demographic studies for the Fairlawn School District.
Correct.
Okay. I've advanced the slide. Sometimes it doesn't advance on the other end if I'm the slideshow mode. I don't know why. Are you seeing the next slide?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, the next presentation will probably take about 20 minutes or so. The report is rather long, and that's why we're trying to give it due diligence to discuss. Really briefly, our firm has been around almost 25 years. We do just school demography work for school districts in the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. That's roughly about 200 school districts in the state. We've branched out to Washington, D.C. area, and upstate New York. We are the data demographic consultant for the New York City Public Schools since 2006. The last 15 years, we do all their projections, and they're the largest school district in the nation. So a little bit about myself. I'm the executive director of the company. I have a doctorate from Rutgers University in the Graduate School of Educational Statistics and Measurement Department. Most of us wind up being something called a psychometrician, which we work with a college board. Looking at reliability and validity of tests, but that's not what I want to do. I want to do something more applied. And I publish numerous journal articles on this particular topic, not only nationally, but internationally. I testify as an expert witness on this particular topic in ALJ hearings in the state. if school districts want to divorce from each other if they're sending, receiving, and reading law. So, with no further ado, talking about what we did here, this study was done about 3 months ago. So, most people think of a demographic study as just enrollment projections, but it's way more than that. Yes, we do project enrollments out 5 years, which is going to be done in this particular analysis, but we also look at the community's population trends over time, the demographic characteristics of its people and its age structure, birth counts, fertility rates, to get a better idea of what's going on in the community. We also looked at the historical enrollments over time at the K-4, 5 to 8, 9 to 12 configuration and by school. Now, I know you recently changed from you got PK to 5 and 6 to 8, but we did some manipulating with some numbers so you can see those historical enrollments over time in the new configuration. We also looked at the building capacities of all the schools and how they line up with the enrollments both currently and projected, whether or not you have enough seats or you have a surplus. That's what that's about. And the last thing is we contacted the municipal planning department to find out if there's any residential housing developments under construction that can impact the district. This slide is showing Fairlawn's historical and projected populations. Everything to the left of the vertical line is historical populations. You can see that in 2020, in the census, you're just shy of about 35,000 people. Everything to the right of the vertical line is from a third-party agency called the North Jersey Transportation Authority. However, that was based on the 2010 census accounts. They haven't released anything for the new, based on the 2020 census. So if you already see the 2020 count here, it's already higher than the 2030 count, which is going to have to be adjusted once the 2020 count of age and sex come out and they can figure this out. So you're going to be growing even more based on that 35,000 roughly population you had in 2020. So like most communities around the country, you are declining in the white population and increasing in other races. So roughly 2/3 white in 2020, second largest race is Hispanic, and third largest race is Asian. You're increasing the Hispanic and Asian population and decreasing in the white populations from 2010. But like I said, that is not unusual. It's happening around the country. By 2045, we expect to be a majority-minority country where whites will no longer be the majority race. The median age in the community is about 42 years, which is very similar to that of the state. Large foreign-born population, almost a third of the population is foreign-born, which is about 10 percentage points higher than the state. Russia and India are the largest sources. Very, very highly educated community. Compared to the state average, about 59% have a bachelor's degree or higher. High household incomes, around $130,000, which is about $45,000 more than the state. A lot of housing units, about 12,000 almost, of which 81% are either single-family detached or attached, which would be a townhome, and 20% are renter occupied. So not as much as the state, 36%. And the median value of owner occupied units is about $439,000, which means 50% of the housing stock has a value greater than that, and 50% is less than that. So our GIS analysts put together a map showing the location of the schools as well as the municipal boundaries. And then we put together a list of all the elementary schools and their attendance areas. You can see the red line that cuts right through the middle of the town also becomes the dividing line for the middle school, where the right side of that red line goes to Jefferson and the left side goes to Memorial. So when looking at historical enrollments, as of the 21-22 year, as of October 15, 2021, the enrollment was 5,366.5, 25 was shared time student. And you may wonder why we're not using the enrollment, say, of June 30th, 22. Well, the reason being is there's one day of the year that the school districts report their enrollment data to the state, and it's on or about October 15th. So we use that date every year as more of a uniformity in our enrollments, historical enrollments. For your district, you have been steadily increasing over the last decade. you go back almost 10 years, to 12, 13 years, you gained almost 795 students. And to project enrollments, excuse me, we use something called the cohort survival ratio method, which is approved by the state to project enrollments 5 years out. So here's just a graph showing the pre-K to 12 enrollments over time, and it's just been a steady trajectory upwards. But this is the graph that I really want you to look at and pay attention to, because this might be the most important thing I talk about tonight. And to historical enrollments by grade configuration. The blue one up on top is the elementary configuration, which has been steadily increasing over time. The middle school population, which is in green, has also been steadily increasing, you can see. The red one, which is the high school, it declined, but now it's reverse trend has gone up. However, the enrollment of high school, compared to the endpoints, really hasn't changed that much over time. However, the elementary enrollment has gone up about 487 students over this period, and the middle school about 289. So why do I ask you to look at this? If you think about it, where is the biggest growth happening? It's happening at the elementary level. Those students where you're getting bigger and bigger grade cohorts have to move through the system. So it's going to impact your middle and high school enrollments going forward. So I would say this little graph here is the window to the future. It's kind of telling you what's going to happen over time. So as I mentioned, we use this thing called the cohort survival ratio method for projecting enrollments. It's fairly straightforward. So just to give you an example, you have 100 first graders in the 2020-21 school year. And the next year they advance to second grade, but there's only 95 of them. You lose 9, you lose 5, and then that. The survival rate, or grade progression rate, some people call it, is 95 over 100, or 0.95. So we do this for all the grade progressions, including birth to kindergarten, all the way up to 11 to 12. And there's 13 of them. If the ratios are above 1, you're gaining students via inward migration. If they're below 1, you have outward migration. So we did these survival ratio computations for a 10-year period. 11 of the 13 average ratios we do to a 5-year average were above 1. You had a lot of inward migration into the district. And all the ratios in the elementary and middle school grades, K-8, were above 1. The two ratios that were below 1 were at the high school level, which is not really too surprising for a lot of work. We see a lot of people go to private school for high school. So once we compute these average ratios, because we're trying to smooth out variations over time, we apply them to the current enrollments to project what the future enrollments will be, assuming those ratios will hold constant over time. So your district has a phenomenon here called negative kindergarten first grade replacement. And you've had negative kindergarten first grade replacement for the last 7 of the last 9 years. And I'll tell you what that is in a moment. Prior to 2016-17, you had a half-day kindergarten program in the school district. What kindergarten replacement is where we compare the number of outgoing seniors, 12th graders, to the number of incoming kindergarten students the following year. But because you had a half-day kindergarten prior to 16-17, we compare to the first grade population, because you gain a lot of students from kindergarten and first grade when people send their children to a private school, maybe for kindergarten. So you have negative kindergarten replacement, that's when the number of entering kindergarten students is less than the number of graduating 12th grade students from the prior year. Positive is just the reverse. With the exception of 2021, which was the first year of the pandemic, the magnitudes of the kindergarten replacement haven't been very large in the last 5 years, which indicates that the size of the entering and exiting cohorts are fairly similar in size, and that's what this is showing right here. You can see the right-hand side of the graph, not much difference in the two. But when we compare the kindergarten replacement, which is in gray, to the enrollment change annually, you can see that if you did have negative kindergarten replacement in a year, it was completely offset, and you had an enrollment gain caused by this inward migration of students in the 11 and 13 grades, which I just mentioned a moment ago. So basically what this graph is telling me is that yeah, you may have negative kindergarten placement, but you have so much inward migration, it's offset by these inward migration of students. So birth counts. Birth counts are used to project kindergarten students 5 years later. We looked at data from 2007 to 20. Basically, there was a period of decline, but births have been really stable the last 7 years, ranging between 306 and 337. So it's not like that your school district is growing due to birth counts increasing. That's not the case. You can take a look here. It's been fairly stable in the last 7 or so years. When we compare birth counts to how many students show up 5 years later, we see something very interesting. Here's the survival ratios for birth to kindergarten in the last column. You can see that they're below 1 until you become a full-day kindergarten program in the 2016-17 year. And then they're all above 1. So that means that a lot of people who were previously going to private school for kindergarten are no longer doing that. They're coming to your school for kindergarten instead. And because the values are above 1, you're gaining a lot of students from birth to kindergarten 5 years later, which again is telling me that people with school-age children under the age of 5, under the age of 5 are moving in to Fairlawn to get their kids to kindergarten when they're of age. So from the state provides us something called births by census plot, which allows us then to group the births by elementary attendance area. This is showing the number of births by attendance area for the last 13 or so years. There was a problem there with state data, which is shown in red. There was a lot of unknown mothers and addresses in Fairlawn, which means that they knew the mother had birth. She lived in Fairlawn, but they didn't know exactly where. So we couldn't redistribute those back into the attendance area. But over time, what we can say is that the most births occurred in the Westmoreland area and the fewest in the Holmcrest area. And that's what this is showing here is the births over time. The attendance area goes through quick. This is just up into the darker the blue, the more the births. Now we get to 2020, you can see where the greater number of births are occurring. This is births by census plots. Back in 2007, the greatest number of births is somewhere as far as Westmoreland area right here. And we look at 2020, it's sort of in the same area. And if we aggregate birth data for the last 13 years, where the greatest number of births, again, the same area. So the age pyramid of the community is also very common. In the 2010 year, the greatest number, this is a graph showing males on the left by 5-year age classes and females on the right. And what we're seeing is that the largest group for males is 45 to 49 and 50 to 54 for females in 2010. Now, we don't have age and sex data yet for 2020 census. We have something called the 2016-20 American Community Survey, which takes data from that 5-year period. And you can see that, according to them, the females of 35 to 39 are now the largest group, where males are still the largest group at 45 to 49. It's a very disjointed picture because it's a 5-year average. It'll look a lot cleaner once the 2020 data comes out. This is just showing the change in the males and females over time from 2010 to 2016-20 ACS. Really just showing that the biggest gainers are in blue, which is common to gain a lot of people in the baby boomer population in the 60s. So the males, the biggest gainer was 65 to 69. Biggest gainer for females was 35 to 39. Biggest decliner for males was 15 to 19-year-olds. And biggest decliner for females was 50 to 54. So let's talk about new housing. New housing is certainly a consideration when we do a demographic study. Crossings in Bradford has been going on for a while. I've worked through district, I think this is the 3rd time now. So 109 units of phase 1 and 2 have been completed. So 165 total units. We're only seeing 56 here because these are the ones that have remained to be built. The other 109 units you already have students that are attending the school district in those units. So we don't want to count them, we're only counting those yet to be built. And then there's some 2 smaller older projects here, 16 and 26 units. All the units that you're showing here, there's 2 things that built. there are what's called multi-family units, which means apartments and townhouses. And they also have a affordable unit component, which is to help satisfy the settlement agreement that we have with Fair Share Housing Center to build more affordable housing. So overall, there's about 100 units probably that are proposed to be built in Fairfield. And the location, I think I have put them on a map to show you where they are. Two of them are in the heart of the Illinois 10 zone, and that one over here crossing the Radburn Forest is the Radburn zone. So in the March 2020 demographics, a couple years ago, we computed how many children you can expect in a single-family home, a townhouse, and a condo. And they don't really change the student yields much over time. So we're going to use those same yields from a couple of years ago in this report. We basically joined the student addresses of the school district to the property databases of Fair Lawn. And you can see how much bigger the student yields are for one to four family home, which mostly has single family and some duplex, compared to townhouse and condos. Very, very different. Make a long story short, if you really want to explode the community population-wise kids, you build a lot of detached single family. If you want to keep the numbers down, you can build a townhouse or apartment, they just don't have as many children. So, based upon these student yields, we're projecting about 30 public school children from those new housing developments. Wholesale are a different story in terms of how it generates children, because what usually happens in a community like yours is older folks selling their homes to families with young children, those are the buyers, because they want to get into the school system. And you can see how the sales, this is from 1994 to 2021, the number of sales peaked in 2005, and then declined around 2008, 2009 due to the housing market crash. But it's steadily increasing. And in 2021, which is the most recent year we have data, you can see that now we're approaching numbers and sales very similar to prior to the housing market crash. Very strong housing market. So this is showing the enrollment projections, and I'm not asking you to memorize this, I'm just showing you all we're doing it for a 5-year period, and we do 2 sets of projections for the school district to provide a range, to give you an opportunity to see different possibilities. And the numbers in red are for the elementary, middle, and high school grade configurations as well as total. We're going to summarize in the next slide. So if we summarize this, at the overall enrollment, we're projecting a gain of somewhere between 431 and a half to 494 and a half students in the next 5 years. At the elementary level, a much smaller gain, 39 to 70. Most of the gain you can see is at the middle and high school level, 173, 186, and 219 and a half to 230 and a half. Again, as those larger elementary cohorts move through the system. Okay, this is pretty much, we're getting the end of the presentation very soon. This is showing the capacity analysis, which is really a comparison of the capacity of each of your buildings through the long-range facility plan with respect to the current enrollment in the 21-22 year and the projected enrollment in 26-27. If you see numbers that are blue, that means you have surplus seating. If you see numbers that are red, your capacity or have something called unhoused students. Now, unhoused students of 10 is really nothing. It's nothing to worry about. Just so you know, capacity is not a hard and fast number. It can change either up or down. If the district decides they want bigger class sizes, you can fit more students in the building that way. Or if you put more special education rooms in the building, you can lower the capacity because you cannot have as many special ed children in the classroom as compared to general ed. But what we're seeing here is due to the increasing enrollment in the district, we're going to have more schools that are going to have unhoused students in the next 5 years. Just because you have a surge of people moving into the school district. So we have to talk about parking. I hate talking about it, I'm sick of it, but probably most of you are. But from an enrollment projection side of things, it's something that needs to be talked about because it really varies from one place to another what it's impacted. The bigger cities that I work with, I did a presentation today in a large city in New York. they're having big decline in enrollment through COVID. Where I'm in here in Vermont, it's the opposite. We've had a 15% increase in some towns, as some people from New York, New Jersey, metropolitan area moved up here to their second home, or walk home, now I think they're going to school here. But you can see that there's some big declines around the country, and the main question we all have are people going to be leaving these large metropolitan areas to live in rural areas permanently, or are they going to return? And that really has a lot to do with my opinion, whether people have to go back into the office permanently on a 5-day work week, which in my opinion is not going to happen. So as a summary today, enrollment are projected to increase throughout the 5-year projection period, primarily due to the inward migration of students. The grade schemes are projected as middle and high school grade configurations as these larger elementary cohorts move through the system. And with that, I will open it up to questions.
Board members, questions? What? Hello, can you hear me? Yeah, microphone, please. Oh, here we go.
I mean, usually I can hear whoever's closest to the mic, so hopefully you're close to the mic, but call me after and repeat it.
Good evening, can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly? Probably not. I can hear my mic in the room is working, but I think Dr. Reed doesn't hear me.
Dr. Griff, can you hear Mr. Aiken?
I heard that more level. Can you repeat the question, please?
No. I did not ask a question yet, I'm just asking if you hear me. Okay, so the slide of capacity analysis is probably the most important. That's what we're all been waiting for. I have a couple of questions. First, I see Redburn School is now -10, and we have Redburn crossings not yet completed field, so there will be more children coming from Redburn crossings. Yet in 5 years, it will be +4. So the number of kids in Redburn will decrease. Am I interpreting everything correctly here?
Someone closest to the mic is going to have to repeat that because I literally heard about 1% of that. I'm sorry.
The question is about the capacity analysis and Radburn, that it's -10, and we still haven't seen a full effect to Radburn crossings, and then it'll be at +4.
Right.
Is that accurate? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure, that's a good question. So the way it works with adding new students to a school based upon housing, we have to look at the historical period. Because a lot of those students who, in the last 5 years, that were built in those new housing, that crossing that had entered into the district, they increased the survival ratios in that school. So we can do this if we just add the new students that haven't, and units that haven't been built yet without considering the historical period, because the survival ratios are already up due to the new housing. So the rule of thumb is this. We take a look at the historical period and see how many units have been built. So let's say there were 100 units built in the Radburn area in the last 5 years. If there's only 50 units or so being built there in the future, we're not going to adjust the projections because it does not exceed the historical number of units that were built that caused the survival ratios to go up. Does that make sense?
I will try once more. Thank you for translating. You mentioned that capacity is not a hard and fast number, it's a flexible number. As you mentioned, we can have fewer kids, then capacity is smaller, with more kids, then capacity is higher. Would you be able to give kind of guidance of, should they think of capacity as ±10%, ±50%? How soft is this number?
Yeah, I need a help.
All right, so the question was the capacity number, that this is not, the numbers aren't hard. Are we looking at, 10%, cushion on each side? Am I paraphrasing that correct? Well, is there somewhat of a cushion on each side? You know, because it's not a hard number, obviously, it's just a projected number that you're giving us.
Well, let's put it this way, it's hard in the sense that this is how you're using the building right now, this is what the capacity is. However, if you change your instructional policy, like I said, or whether it be more kids in the class, regular ed or more special ed, that's how it changes the number. It's not that these numbers are like plus or minus 10 or 15 or whatever, it really depends upon how your policy is. And that's when you work with an architect. So all these numbers here from a capacity standpoint were determined by your architect. I'm just taking their data and using it. So I can't really speak to specifics of, capacity, generating spaces and all that. That would be more of a technical question.
And we're actually going to get into that when we do our projection a little bit. So we'll speak about the architecture piece, scheduling, capacity, and we'll also talk about how this is based off of the October 15th snapshot from last year. We're going to show you data from June 30th. We're going to show you data from July 28th, which is today, our actual registration in preparation for the fall. And then what we wanted to do was provide the board 2 more data points, September 1st, or whatever school starts, September 7th, whatever it is, and then look at it again after the next October 15th snapshot and try to give us a picture of 5 different numbers on which way we're going. But you'll get a good sense of kind of what we were asking and what we were seeing, I believe, when we were on the station.
Programs, our question will this presentation be online?
Yeah, well, Dr. Group's presentation as well as my presentation will both be online tomorrow.
Thank you, Will. Any input, Ron?
Can you hear me? Dr. Webb, did you take into account the last 5 years of construction that went on, like you have people buying small capes, knocking them down, building mansions, or also adding on? Because one of my questions always been with all these demographics is that if you have a 4-bedroom home, how do you determine if a young couple buys up no kids? Are they going to have 1 kid, 2 kids, 4 kids, 5 kids? So I just never understood. I'm in the construction industry, so I just was curious if you looked at those numbers in Fairwell.
Right. Well, we did look and see, so we do see that there are a lot of knockdowns and things like that. Infill lots, not a tremendous number, but there are. We don't do any analyses at the individual house level to say, okay, this was a 3-bedroom house, it's now a 5-bedroom house, what's the impact of that? And I'll tell you why. Usually, in these days, just because you build a bigger home doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fill it with kids. In our analysis, we've been studying household sizes over a long period of time in birth data, and all that is to continue to decrease. So even if people are having bigger homes, they're using it for a gym, they're using it for office, so on and so forth, but an extra bedroom. So I don't usually see the correlation as much as maybe a lot of people might think. Bigger home equal more children.
Anybody else? Any other board members' questions? No? Okay.
There's none on Zoom before we get to the public that are here. There's only one of these Google Docs. It's okay that I'm actually going to start with that question.
Sure.
It's from Evan Feynman in Fairlawn, and his question, Dr. Grip, is how do you account for people who are sending their children to private schools? We have a big influx of religious people who will be sending their kids to private schools and not our public schools.
Right. So there's one of the things that we're assuming here is that the percentage of people attending private schools historically is going to occur in the future. So I did have to do an analysis school by school where all Fairlawn children are going. I know there's a lot of religious schools in the community because one of the tenets of our projection is that history will predict the future. We don't, and I know a lot of people think a projection and a forecast are the same thing, but in our industry they're not. A forecast actually projects future trends in how people will attend private school or not. We're doing a projection which is looking at historical data and carrying it forward. So to answer your question about private school, we're just assuming that in the last 10 years, that the percentage of students that are not in the public school system is going to continue into the future.
Thank you. Members of the audience, any questions? Alba, come on up, just state your name, sign in, and make your question.
Alba
Sorry?
Randall Perez, Fairmont. I'm a biologist, Dr. Greg. So I think of populations in the biological sense, and every time there is like some sort of catastrophe in animal populations, like the primates, which is very close to us, we see a higher reproduction levels. So do you think that this will be the case for post-COVID pandemic? Are we going to see an increase in reproductive rates compared to the past 2 years because we didn't have, I know we had a slowdown in reproductive rates in 20 and 21. Do you expect that to change and affect these projections for, the following 5 years?
We know on this question, I could not hear the whole thing.
You're really going to make me paraphrase that question. So Alba is a biologist, and her question is, you see, in primates, whenever there's a catastrophe of some sort, there's a higher birth rate following the catastrophe. Do you feel coming out of the pandemic, there will be a higher birth rate due to the catastrophe? Is that I'm glad we're paying attention.
That's a great question. There was this theory that when we all start going to the pandemic, that we're just going to be cranking out kids to war. We have nothing to do. We've been looking at the birth data from 2020, 2021, and the answer is no. It's continuing to decline more holistically. Of course, not in your towns, it's fairly stable. But a lot of the towns that I work with, and even more nationally, we're still seeing a decline in births, and it really has to do with people delaying having that first child later and later and later. So it's more of a choice of people rather than pandemic driven. And a lot of it has to do with finances, of course, with people losing jobs during the pandemic, there was economic components to this as well.
Thank you. I have to raise for this one. This is also a biological question. I thought it was very interesting that in your analysis of the human population here, women between 35 and 40 something increase in the population for Fairlawn. And those are precisely the women who are reproductive age. And like you said, yes, we're delaying reproduction, but we're delaying reproduction around that time. So I thought that was a very interesting fact, that those women are the major component of our population. So I think that will probably have an impact on reproduction rates as well.
Glad that was a statement, not.
Okay, any other members of the audience? All right.
I'm Jean Brown on 3rd Street. I have a couple questions, not in the biology though. I noticed on the page where it discussed, I probably should have turned it over. Where it discussed population from the 50s on into the, oh yeah, you could go. So my question, why you're looking, yes. So I noticed right away that in the 1970s, the population was even higher than it was, than it is currently. So I am a big proponent of learning from our past and not reinventing the wheel. So I'm wondering if part of your job with doing this was looking at or maybe this is what the district needs to do when they look at this. What did the school district do to accommodate the large population in the 70s? And then how do we then in turn translate that to meet the needs of our population, our student population currently?
That's a good question. Actually, I heard you perfectly. I don't know why some people might think it's well, but it's not. In the 70s, this is really interesting. It's cyclical population growth and decline. You can see almost 38,000 students. What we found in many school districts in the state of New Jersey was very, very large population growth in the 70s, followed by declines in the late 80s and 90s, and then spiking around 2005, peaked again. If I was to show you the enrollment graph of time in the state, that's what it looked like, almost like a roller coaster. This is not quite as stark. I mean, there's definitely a peak in the valley here, but I don't know if I can usually get back and even find enrollment data from the 70s for Fairlawn. Most of the enrollment data at the state level fell off somewhere around 1998. But perhaps the school district would have an ability to get back that I would not be able to.
Thanks. I have one more question, but I'm not really sure if it pertains to you or if it would pertain to the data that the school district is going to provide. I know that you had stated that your data doesn't reflect the specifics of the student population, general education versus special education and class sizes and things like that. My question, I guess, then is to the district, do your numbers take into account the different needs of the different students in our town and what each of those different class sizes are going to look like, projection-wise?
So you'll see that in part of our presentation. What we did was we used hard enrollment right now exactly. So if there's 650 students in Memorial School, it wasn't broken down by, well, we have 4 self-contained classrooms. But what we want to do next is take it to the next level with our architect and do a room capacity and look at every single one. If you have a room that's 1,200 square feet with 3 students in it, you may have to take a look at that when you're seeing an influx of students coming up and seeing where that classroom is. But I don't want to, we'll get into that in our presentation. It's something that I will be recommending to the board, and I think the direction we should go in with our architect, and we'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay, I think Alba's wheelhouse was biology, but my wheelhouse is special ed, so I think that, it would be important as part of the conversation to looking at like class sizes and things like that, to looking at like services and resources that we're providing students to them, how many of those students are we consistently transitioning out of and making sure that they're successfully out of special education to then, circumvent the whole placement and class sizes and things like that. That was just a statement. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? Mike, okay, go ahead.
What is like we all of a sudden, 6-7 years ago, had this big acceleration in the amount of students that we had in Fairlawn, and Fairlawn all of a sudden busted open and everybody came in. Are you just assuming that that's going to continue, or isn't there a good chance that that will peak and level out? Because it was abnormal that happened, and it happened quite abruptly.
So, Dr. Gripp, it's Nick again. Just jumping in and piggyback on Mr. Rosenberg's question. This was the same exact question that John Sarbilia, our business administrator, and I had before Dr. Gripp. We had spoken a couple weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was, and said, wow, we're seeing this projection of almost an increase of 100 students per year, give or take. What does it look like 10 years from now? Are we looking at an increase of 1,000 students over 10 years? Or whatever, so we were asking the same question. Do we see it plateauing? Do we see it going down, increasing, and so on? So, Dr. Gripp?
Yeah, well, there's two pieces here. The inward migration that I've been talking about, let's just say, for instance, that the inward migration stops. The problem is the floodgates are already here, they're already open. The cohort sizes of the kindergarten classes are bigger now than they were 10 years ago. Unless it be worked out, and then people start leaving, that would be the only way to start leveling off the district, but since you already have it in the system, unfortunately, you have to ride that out until they graduate as seniors, which takes a long, long time.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, any other members of the audience? No. All right, I think, Dr. Griffin or
Dr. Grip, thank you so much, really appreciate it.
Sure.
Good job. Thank you. Be in touch.
Thank you, Dr.
Bye-bye.
Okay, no, Dr. Griffin.
Yeah. While they pull my presentation up, I'm gonna cover the superintendent comments that I have on the agenda. So one of the things that's on the agenda right now is the school calendar. We actually had, there was one misstep on the school calendar. There was one misstep on the school calendar, in November. We had 16 days, and there was 17 days, so we had one extra day in the calendar that we didn't account for. 10 different set of eyes, all our board members, everybody in the community, and somehow we just missed that day. It was an error on our part. So, we are recommending, we have our associations, that's as per the contract, there's no change in the calendar. We speak with the association, and we are recommending that we take that day off the last day of the calendar. So that graduation, instead of the last day of school year being on Friday, it'll be on a Thursday this year. So we're not getting out there this year. We know that's something that's important to the community as well. There's always talk of. We know that there's always talk about camps and families getting ready for camps in Fairlawn, so we do have this important to our community as well. Also, it's the same exact way our school year ended this year, so that Monday will be a full day of school, which will be a service learning day for Juneteenth. Tuesday and Wednesday will be half days. Wednesday will be graduation again, same exact way as it was this year, and then Thursday will be dismissal for the staff. The students will not be here. And then we are done. Also included in that calendar are the 3 professional development days that are in there. One of them is in October, one of them is in January, and I believe one is March 20th. It's my daughter's birthday, it's the reason why I remember it. But we have 3 professional development days as well. That'll be in the calendar. The second bit of information that I want to speak about is district goals. Last year, we had completed our district goals a little bit differently than years past. We had worked on them administratively, and then we had presented the community with ideas via the survey. We gathered that information, and then from there we formulated our district goals for the 2021 school year, and we created an action plan for those district goals. This year we are doing the same exact thing, but we're just elaborating on it a little bit. Tomorrow, a survey will be going out with 8 different district goals that we worked on throughout the summer that we want to present to the community. 4 different surveys are going to go out. One survey will go to the community, to the parents. One survey will go to the students, one survey will go to the staff, and one survey will go to the board members. They will all have the same 8 topics with a little brief description of which goals, what the goals actually mean. And this year, the parents, unlike last year, because we heard the feedback last year, instead of saying, well, this goal here, I strongly agree, or I strongly disagree, or I like it, this year we're actually going to rank them 1 through 8. So you may say that CTE goal is number 1 for me. That's my favorite goal. Number 3 may be a green initiative. You may say, number 1, green initiative is most important to me, and number 8 is transitions, or whatever it may be. But we're going to solicit feedback over the next 10 days. In that survey, we'll put the survey out everywhere we can. If you want to share it, please do. But those survey results, then we'll take them, and then we're going to prepare, and we're going to have a work session on August 22nd, the Monday. We'll present the goals to the board, and
come, and then we will actually vote on them at that Thursday meeting, which is our regular scheduled monthly meeting for the board on that Thursday. The last thing I want to update you on, which is great news, is our QSAC scores. We just found out this week that we are considered once again a high-performing district. We did unbelievably well on QSAC. We beat our last score by 1 point, which is awesome. We scored 100 on governance, 100 on operations, 100 on personnel, 98 on finance, and 91 on curriculum and instruction. And if you've ever, thank you, but I won't clap. But if you've ever gone through QSAC before, the curriculum and instruction, at first glance, you're 91, you're like, where did we go wrong? What did we do? That is strictly, that 91 points, or the lack of 100 points, is pulled right from our test scores, our state test scores, our graduation, our attendance, whatever it is. So a lot of it's out of our control. Yes, you could say it's in our control, because of course we want our students to do well on state testing, but it's not that we're losing points because of something that we didn't teach or something we did wrong here. But it's a very respectable, great score, and I'm really proud of our team. And when I say our team, it's our administrators, it's our teachers, it's our community, it's our secretarial staff, it's our parents, and most importantly, it's our students. So, job well done for our QSAC. And then I believe the last, I don't have the agenda for me, but that's it, right? The last thing is a demographic presentation. Correct. All right. Is it, do you have up there, or is it on here?
You have.
Where's the one that I emailed Brad? Well, that was one you should read. Okay, everybody can still hear me? So Dr. Griff's presentation that he had provided to us was excellent. He did a great job, Dr. Griff. Statistical forecasting is probably one of the best monikers in the country. There's a reason why we use it. With that being said, though, it's one piece of the puzzle. There's many other pieces that we have to take into consideration. It's not just that data that he showed us there. It's real-time data. It's how many kids are actually in the seats. How are we using our classrooms? Small group instruction, large group instruction. How many kids are really registered for school in September? How many people are we going to have for the mad rush right before Labor Day and say, yeah, I forgot I was at the beach all summer, now I'm going to register my kids. It happens. As much as we do that to encourage families to register as soon as possible, it's difficult. I think we're doing a better job, we're going to get a better handle on it, but it's still one piece of the puzzle. So I think it's important. If there's two things that you walk away with tonight, it's one, we are going to continue to monitor this. We do it every day, but we are going to present it to you every couple of months so you have an idea of where we are. Because this is important stuff here. Fairlawn, we have a great problem on our hands. This is a great town and a great school system that people want to move to. The second thing is, the sky is not falling. And if there's one thing you walk away with tonight, don't get too nervous. And we're going to walk out and say, oh my God, where are we going to put our kids? It's an important conversation for us to have, but I don't want you to feel like we are going to run out of the room completely. We have plans in place, and Dr. Grip actually, he didn't say it, but he said it to John and I when we met. He said, I've seen districts with a lot, in a worse situation than what you're seeing up here, and they don't have to do anything. A lot of times it's just looking at how your schedule is, how you utilize your rooms, what you do with your space, and that's what we really have to look at here. So, while I jump in, we had Dr. Gribb's presentation, his summary of findings, his 5-year projections. So, things that we're going to talk about tonight. Real-time data. What are we looking at? Our schedule and program analysis. Similar to Gene, what you were mentioning, talking about special education. Room utilization, working with our architects. CT follow-up at Fairlawn High School. As many of you know, we budgeted $3 million last year to begin the process of looking at CTs. We actually pumped the brakes right away as soon as we received our demographic report, because we felt like it was important for us to have this conversation before we have the next conversation. But you're going to see, or you're going to hear me recommend why I think it's important to move forward with CTE, how it'll free up classroom space at Fairlawn High School as well. Additional recommendations that are in here, some simple things I feel like we can do that cost no money, and a lot of it is just having conversations. And then last but not least is we are in a very healthy financial state in Fairlawn, but should we have to add on classrooms, we feel that we will be comfortable in doing that if we get to that doomsday period. But right now, the sky is not falling, this is a moving target. All right. So what I used is what I explained to you before. It was Dr. Gribb's October 15th count. It was the June 30th number, which is on tonight's board agenda, actually. If you want to look at the enrollment numbers on the agenda, it's the June 30th. It's what we ended the school year with. Today's data, literally as of today, we were pulling the data to see exactly where we were at, so we could give you the most accurate idea. September 1st. That may be September 6th or 7th. Like I said, I'd rather wait the school open, but I call it September 1st. And then our next snapshot, October 15th. That is our in schools, as Dr. Gribb said, is the most important day of the year for us when it comes to attendance and where we are with students. All right. So if you looked at Warren Point, I actually broke it down by every single school for you. At first, I did just a couple examples just to show you a school that was going up, a school that was going down, but I anticipated the question was going to come, hey, I want to see Forest. So we just said, you know what, let's just take it a step further and do every single school. So we wanted to do every single school so that you can get an idea of where we are today. So Warren Point, 411 students. As of today, 388 students are registered for Warren Point School. 110 fourth grade students moved up to the middle school, and only 65 are coming into kindergarten right now. So that helps us. That helps us. Yes, we have to look at the middle school, but it helps us when we're looking at the number of students that are coming in. And Dr. Gribb, when we had our conversation with him, he kept on saying, we see it moving up to the middle and high school, but we see it slowing down at the elementary. And this shows that here. He had projected 413 students for this upcoming school year. However, as of today, we're at 388. So there's 25 less students than what he projected. That's really good right now. Because instead of thinking that our numbers are growing, so that's why I said it's only a snapshot. When you look at a demographic report, it's not the end all and be all. I'm not saying that we're not going to get to 413, but right now, I'm pretty happy with the 388. I'll take that. Hopefully, everybody's registered. Even if we pick up another 10 students or so, we're still 15 students less than what was projected, which is a good sign when you think about multiplying that by all the schools that we have. Mills, 426 last October. We ended the school year at around 425. July 28th, we had 416 students. He had projected 455 students for the school year. We're at 416. 39 less students at Mills than what he projected. Once again, even if we get a little bit of a rush, maybe we'll pick up another 20 students. I don't even think that many, but maybe we pick up 20 students, but we're still 20 or 19 students less than what the projection was. So right now, this is a good sign. Bradford, 357 last October. We ended with 367, and as of today, we're at 372. He had projected 357, so this one isn't as great. We're 15 more students than what he had projected. Forest School, we are 8 students less than what was projected. So he had recommended, or he had projected 271 students. Today, we have 263 students, so we're 8 less students attending Forest than what was projected. By the way, just point of information, he had talked about the 4-year trend analysis and the 5-year in his report. This is all based off of the 4. If I had to look at the 5, the numbers are like 1 off, plus or minus. So when we did this today, we just based it off of the 1. So if you're going to compare this to Dr. Grip's report and double check my math, just use the 4-year, not the 5-year. Lakecrest, 210 students, October 15th. We ended with 209. We're at 205 right now, and he had projected 202. So we're about 3 students on that Lakecrest. Westmoreland, also Westmoreland includes all of our Edison students. So Westmoreland is considered a home school for our Edison students, so you have to take into consideration about 80 students that are at Edison, back that out of the number. 403 students, October 15th. We ended with 407. We're at 394 right now. He had projected 406 students. However, as of today, we're at 394. We're 12 students less than where we are. Once the school year starts, we'll be able to disaggregate this data a little bit more and tell you exactly who's at Edison, who's at Westmoreland, and kind of where we're at with Westmoreland. Memorial Middle School. Now we're getting into middle school. This was a school that was concerning. What were we going to do? The numbers were going up. He had, we were at 635, October 15th. We ended at 635. We were at 614 students today, and we're about 32 students less than what he's projecting. He had projected 646, and as of today, we are at 614 students. So 32 less at Memorial, which is a good sign. Memorial is also something that we have to always take into consideration, because we house a lot of our self-contained special education classrooms at Memorial, so we have a lot of large spaces at Memorial with very few students in it. Their needs are there, and I'm not recommending anything right now, but it's something to take into consideration and something we'll talk about. TJ, 1,073 students last year, October 15th, 1,085 June 30th, and then 1,118 as of today. He had projected 1,122 students. We're about 4 students less than what the projection was. Fairlawn High School. Sorry, he's here.
No, I was there, but I looked at the back screen.
All right, no comment. Fairlawn High School, 1,577 students, 1,583 we ended the school year with. We're at 1,620 right now. He had projected 1,609, and we're at 1,620, so we're 11 students more. That's supposed to say Fairlawn High School, not Memorial. My typo, I will fix that tomorrow for the presentation. So Fairlawn High School, we are seeing an increase. But if you, like I said, going back to Dr. Grip's report, he keeps saying it's Memorial, it's TJ, it's high school. We're seeing these numbers go up, and we're seeing the numbers at the younger grades decrease. We're seeing the same projections right now. Right? So this did not make it into the presentation, but if you, John, took all of my numbers and compared it to Dr. Grip's numbers, and we will include this in the presentation for tomorrow, so it's up there. And he broke it down by school and calculated the whole entire district, all these numbers together. And the demographic study projects 5,481 students for the 22-23 school year. However, as of today, we're at 5,390 students that are registered, so we're 91 less students attending the district as compared to the projections. So it's a good sign. You know, cautiously optimistic? Yes. Worried about late registrations? Sure. But it's a good sign, and it's only a snapshot. And, you know, you gotta think, Dr. Grip, he based this off of October 15th. We didn't receive the report until April, but he's using data from a year ago. It's no knock on him, it's part of the science. It's part of what he does. But it's only one picture. It's only one piece of the puzzle. And that's why it's so important that we don't just take this and just put it aside and say we're okay, but we continue to have these conversations over time.
In the past year, let's say, how many students registered in the month of August?
In the month of August, I could speak with our community school, try to get an idea. But what I did factor into this already are all the people that have appointments registered for August. So there were 10 people registered for Radbourne School and 10 people registered for Lindcrest. I factored that into the numbers, assuming that they would be going to Lindcrest, so that we didn't have to look around and say, wow, these kids are here. So we already have all those appointments scheduled, and we already put them in, but I don't have that number on me right now. So, I'm putting it there, that's not really what we did. Schedule and program analysis. I'm going to turn this over to Camille and Natalie to speak about some scheduling and program pieces that play into this. You need a microphone?
Good evening. So, as Dr. Grip was saying, there are many things that we can do in the buildings to try to alleviate some of the issues with the space. One such thing is taking a look at different scheduling models and how that would impact the way that we use our classrooms in the buildings. So that is something that we can certainly explore. Taking a look at our electives, how are they being offered? What are the electives that are being offered? We have classes that last for different durations of time, and that impacts the way that we can use our room, especially at the middle school level where you have some classes and some grade levels that might be 64 minutes, and then other classes and other grade levels that might only be 40 minutes long. So all that kind of overlap definitely impacts the way that we are using our classrooms. So that's something that, again, we can take a look at. There's always the consideration, staggering start and end times for schools, for our students. That certainly helps free up space. We added this past year at Memorial an additional lunch period. We had presented that. And that happened because, again, we were using some of our classrooms for lunch because we didn't have enough room in the cafeteria. So by adding an additional lunch period, we took the students out of the classrooms, put them back into the cafeteria. That freed up quite a few classrooms for us to use. So that is something, again, to consider throughout the district if that helps us with room utilization. We might want to consider pushing programs rather than pull-out programs. That absolutely saves space if we're pushing a teacher in to provide supplemental support for our students rather than using another separate space to do the same instruction. And then we also might want to consider mixed ability grouping in some of our core classes. Right now, when you have more of a homogeneous mix, it certainly impacts the number of courses and the number of classrooms that we need to offer. So that is another thing that we can indeed consider to try to save some space.
Thank you. There's, conversations we've been having with scheduling companies who come in and take a look at your master suite and work with you and talk to you about, have you thought about running a schedule like this? Have you thought about taking a look at how you deliver instruction? So there's, options that we have. And it's important for us to exhaust all those options before we just come back to the taxpayers and say we need money. Let's throw money at the problem. That's not what we want to do. We don't want to just throw money at a problem. We want to make sure that we exhaust all our options while we still deliver a quality, great education for everyone. Room utilization. So this is something that I think is really important. We are recommending to the board, and we've spoken about this, I believe, at a finance meeting, or one of our committee meetings, our architects do a room utilization study, a facility evaluation, and report back to us. They literally, for the cost of approximately $10,000, I think it's $10,500, they will come into Memorial Middle School, TJ Middle School, and Fairlawn High School, and they will go through every crevice of our building. They will analyze every single class, every period, look at the square footage, look at what we are using, and letting us know if we are being as efficient as possible, as well as where we may be able to pick up space or lose space. We think it's a wise investment to have our architects who know our buildings work with us before we start, once again, looking at we're out of space, or what do we do? But really, how to accommodate this growing number of students that are coming to the middle school. So they will, as you can see here, capacity plan will be prepared, showing which rooms might have the ability to handle more capacity through scheduling, and which rooms are maxed out. When compared against the demographic study, they can prepare recommendations for various configurations to address these issues. They'll give us a layout, red, green, yellow, orange, like this is really bad, this is a really good area, you may want to take a look at it. They're also going to review how this could play a role in if we're looking to increase CTE at the high school or 18 to 21 special education programs, and some of the ideas that we've been throwing around on how we want to increase those programs where we feel like they're lacking right now. The timeline for something like this, they would come in, they already completed a 3D scan of every room that we have in our district, so that'll help save them time. They would schedule appointments with our administration, our principals, our supervisors to review the district schedule and some of our practices, and then it would take them about 4 to 6 weeks to have this report. We recommend that we wait until the fall to do this, because it makes more sense when the students are actually here, rather than doing it during the summer and nobody's here in our buildings. Which leads into career and technical education. You know this is a goal of the board. This is a goal of our district. This is something we spoke about last year. This will be one of the 8 goals that are presented to the community tomorrow as well via a survey. And this is an area that we've been speaking about a lot. This is an area that we allocated $3 million in the budget to start the initial phase of planning for career and technical education at Fairlawn High School. What we would like to do is start those conversations. What CTE would do for our school would serve as 2 purposes. One, it would increase an area that we currently really don't have right now at Fairlawn High School. We feel that we offer some CTE electives, however, we don't have any full track CTE programs to prepare our students for post-secondary if that was something that they wanted to get into. What it also would do is, this would require some type of construction, building, or doing something along those lines. Like I said, we initially started to budget money towards that. We have funds in the capital reserves, but we want to start exploring that process to see what it would cost and what it could look like. What it really does as well is it would free up classroom space in the high school, because we could look to maybe take those CTE electives and also move it into wherever we move the CTE to, and it would free up empty classrooms at the high school, and it could accommodate this growing number of students that are going to Fairlawn High School. So we would really, we'd like to move forward and start the initial conversations with our architects, with other key stakeholders, and then we want to report back out to the Board of Education and the community. This is not something that would be done for next September. This is going to be a multi-year project, because it's something that you have to look into. You have to survey. You have to see what desires are out there for CTE programs, where the market is right now, where there's a need for CTE programs. Is there an interest from students? There's so many pieces to this, but now that we got through the demographic study, now that we know that we budgeted money for this, now that we know this is a core goal of ours, now that we know that this is an area that can actually free up classroom space for us, we think this is a good opportunity for us to keep those conversations going and not let it fall to the wayside because of something like this. Some additional recommendations is to revisit after October 15th. If the board wants, I'm not recommending this, but if the board wants, we can always do another demographic study. I don't know that we really need to do one right now after October 15th. I feel like if we keep doing an analysis of our own numbers right now, and we continue to have those conversations, but maybe a year or 2 from now, we want to do an updated demographic study and say, has it changed? Has it gone up? Has it gone down? But that's always an option for the board, is to do an updated demographic study. Third option is, I highly recommend that we continue these conversations about the construction in Fairlawn, and that we continue that via shared services meetings. We have a shared services committee, but I think we should talk about the impact that it's having on our schools, because at some point, there's going to be a breaking point. And as long as we continue to have those conversations, hopefully that can help. And last but not least, but the Board of Ed and the community will be updated several times a year on our numbers, because it's important. We don't, like I said, this isn't one of those things where we just present the demographic study and then it falls to the wayside. John, do you want to speak about classrooms?
Yes.
Capital reserves?
So when we got this initial report, obviously there was a lot of concern. Nick and I were meeting initially going through it. One of the things that I sort of stressed to him was, it is a problem, but it's this is what we're here for. If everything was easy, wouldn't be here. So when we were presented with this, what I said to Nick is, listen, we need to have a plan, not just for this year, but for the next couple of years. When we talked about, what Nick alluded to, is that we do have money in our capital reserve account. And what I really stressed to Nick when when we went through the numbers at first, was I really don't want to have to present to the board that, you know, the enrollment's getting too high, we're going to need to do a referendum. I really feel like we want to explore all the options out there before we do go, even entertain that. So what we looked at, and this is sort of, you know, some of these bullet points in here are going to tie into things we're going to be doing with the architect. You know, it's going to be tying in with Natalie and Camille touched on. You know, if we can utilize the rooms a little bit differently. If we can look at, you know, we've done some, you know, every year we've done applications for dual use, splitting rooms. You know, can we look at doing additional work like that? Again, looking at doing additions or renovations within the buildings themselves, not having to go to a referendum. You know, in my prior district, we used to walk the hallways almost every other year, and any closet we found, we would say, hey, can we put a classroom in here? Can we put a small room in front of it? I'm not, and I'm I mean, we both, that's what we, you know, because that's what we said, listen, we don't have this space, you know, we had a similar type problem, so that's what we're gonna be looking at here. You know, we do have capital reserves, and they are being utilized for renovations, as listed in the district's long-range facility plan, but we can also start to plan to, you know, set money aside in case that we need potential additions to the building, you know, or the installation of temporary classroom units, should they be needed in the future. Obviously, we want to work with the architect, with the board, the demographer on this. We also want to have an ongoing dialogue with the finance committee to understand that, you know, because we do have a lot of things up in the air. You know, we are talking about CT, I'm, you know, going to always be pushing to, you know, do repairs to the buildings. But, you know, I think we're going to be able to do multiple things at once. So I want to make sure that the finance committee and then the board is okay with that approach.
Thank you, John. And here's our last slide, so that's why I wasn't standing back up again. But, so Dr. Cripp, in his report, I believe it was like page 4 or something, at the end of his introductory summary, he had said parents desire to have their children educated in a highly rated and excellent school district. He's talking about Fairmont. This, remember what I started with? This is a great problem to have. A lot of districts are closing schools down, declining enrollment, losing money to the new state funding formula. That's not fair. People are moving here for a reason. It's a great community with a great school system. So this is a good problem to have, but it's something that we need to work together on. With that being said, Gene, I'll open it up to any questions.
Okay, board members. Rita, speak into the.
Is this for the full agenda or just for the?
Just for this.
Okay. So my first question is, it says do more cushions versus pull out. I assume that's for elementary school, is that correct?
It could be, we're speaking about special education, it could be just a model that we're delivering the programmatic pieces that we're talking about. So rather than maybe having a pull-out resource, it could be the model of an inclusion pushing resource model, where then you're not utilizing a classroom and pushing it. It could be related services, you know, a method of related services that we're delivering as well. So you're talking about programmatic pieces of a special education model, depending on what they call it. Intervention services as well.
Thank you. It says also, you were talking about variation in the start times, is that for the high school, middle school, or elementary school, or what were you thinking about? I'm not sure.
I think it's something we have to look at across the board. So again, these are just things that we could consider if became necessary.
My last question, the CTE program that you were discussing about construction, how many students do we project will be actually utilized, like we'll say space, like within the 100 students, 200 students that we think will be utilized?
It's too premature to say at this point. I really couldn't tell you how many until we sit down. We look at something that we think is feasible, if it is something that requires construction, something that's within our budget, and then, you know, working with our architects and then seeing, okay, we have 6 classrooms in this new annex or whatever it looks like, and 6, how many students are going to be removed from the high school now that are going to be in this program? But it's too premature to tell, but hopefully we'll know in the near future.
Thank you.
Well,
Anybody else, any questions? Julie?
So I am all for having the architect come in and review all the space that we have and assess how we're maximizing it. I just want to make sure that this isn't a matter of assessing, maximizing the space at the detriment of our students, and we're packing multiple kids into a classroom so that everyone's getting service. Because at the end of the day, putting too many kids in a classroom isn't best practice in education. And I also just want to make sure, just to follow up on what Rita had shared, we shouldn't be changing the model for a child who receives special education related services if that's not what's best for that particular child.
We would never,
No, I know, I'm not.
we would be driven by the IEP and it would be driven by student needs, so that would be paramount. If there was a trend with our students, as in certain cases with students as it has been, they've been able to successfully complete the golden objectives in their IEP to move across so that they can get into a restricted environment, we would definitely do that. So if we can't do it within one actual program, it could be a different set of programs, or like Nick said, with therapies and things of that nature.
What we're saying in this recommendation is there's options. These aren't the solutions. There's options in here. It's nice to know that we have options in our back pocket. We're not recommending that a special ed student is not. It is IEP, or her IEP is changed to accommodate the growing need of students in Fairlawn. But it's important as educators that we always stay ahead of things, and that we think outside the box, and we look at how we're delivering services at times. And I think the architects are going to come in with their profession and their expertise and look at certain areas. And it very well may be that you're using a 1,000 square foot room for 4 kids when you have a 600 square foot room with 18 kids in it. And maybe you want to swap that where you may have 20 kids in that room and put those students in that room. So it's just a fresh set of eyes with their expertise and profession where we do it. But it's not, we're not making drastic program changes where students are going to be out or missing out.
Julie, anything else?
Nope.
Judd?
Thank you. Just to clarify, and like summarize sort of what's going on. So right now, for this coming school year, is a decrease in students at the moment for this coming school year versus last school year overall.
As of today,
As
yes.
of today. All right.
It's a decrease from what you projected. It's actually, if you look at the.
Is that? Yeah.
Okay, so it's a decrease from projection.
From his projection.
Correct.
But an increase from the previous school year as of today.
Well, like I said, if you look at it, it's actually ironic that the numbers are actually the same as the period, which, it's
So then, okay.
I actually have it again just to make sure that was.
So we ended the school year with the same numbers of students
That we have right now as of today.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
not scrambling basically is what I want to clarify for anything this fall.
Right now, we're okay.
Okay. Thank you.
As of today.
Betty Jo? Anybody else? All right, members of the audience, question? Comment?
You want to make me one?
Yeah, that's all.
So.
Just state your name again for the tape.
I just want to say that we had a referendum in 2019, and the town put their back behind it, because it was going to be the solution for the overcrowding of our district. I said then that I did not agree with the plan. I said then that I was very worried about teaching in the school, running several conversations at that time. And now we're here, we're back at overcapacity schools. I hope that the architect can work miracles. I hope that the demographer is wrong. I want to be optimistic, but like I spoke to you on the phone, prepare for the worst, and hope for the best. I agree with Julie. Overcrowded schools do not serve anybody. Do not serve the teachers, do not serve the students. And that's your job in those seats. To make sure every child in Fairlawn has the best education they can with what we can afford. $25 million went into this referendum, and now we're back to trying to find closet space for our students. So I just want to make sure that I really hope you're right, but I've seen these numbers change from July to the last day of school, and I know they increase every year. I ran into a woman in Bradburn that had a very problematic accent, and she was telling me that she knocked at the school because she was trying to register her kids at Bradburn School. And I had to explain to her that she would never, nobody's going to open the door, that she had to go to the community school. We have an influx of immigrants from many places. We have a lot of new Ukrainian families looking for shelter. So the impact of this pandemic is not over. And I really hope that this board and the next board and the next board takes very serious these demographic studies. If they're wrong, if we don't have enough students and we have enough space, that's a great problem to have. But if they're right, we need a good plan to try to accommodate that influx of students. Thank you.
Thank you all. Any other comments on this topic?
Jean Brown here. I have a couple questions. Well, I guess things to consider with in terms of staggered start and stop times. I know that you're saying that this is like fledgling plan and you're like thinking about this. Please keep in mind like how you're going to help support the parents and the financial burden that may have on them. Speaking from experience, that would have a significant financial impact for myself if we staggered start and stop times in the schools. Just because I have little age children. And then also too, I am a full-blown proponent of push-in services for our special education students. I don't think it's done enough. I love co-taught classes as a special education teacher who's been in a lot of successful co-taught classroom situations. There's a wealth of knowledge on both ends of the spectrum in classrooms, and as long as your special education teachers and general education teachers are supported properly and effectively, push-in services and co-taught classes are definitely on the uptrend, and there's plenty of studies, there's plenty, as you guys know, there's a lot of positive impacts to student populations, so it's not necessarily looking for closet space. I think it's looking at classrooms and how to utilize your already knowledgeable and excellent staff, and then how to support them moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. That ends the presentations and the comments later on. We're going to go into public comments on the agenda items and agenda items. I'm sorry, public comments, board comments. No, wait. Public comments. I got it. Public comments on the agenda items. So you just step up, state your name, and tell us your comment on the agenda.
I just want to congratulate the district that I'm going to say it wrong. And Jack, what is it?
CUSA.
There you go. I was looking at my phone, like, I never going to find it, but it's CUSAC. I think those numbers are outstanding. I'm a nerd, and I would like to see, like 91 up, but that's just me. But my question is, Nick, compared to last year, did we do better in the line item, or did we score?
So the ironic thing about CUSAC, well, one, we did 1.5 million last time. However, the ironic thing about the New Jersey Department of Education is we don't even receive a report. So we're still waiting to see why we scored a 98, we have an idea of a 91. They give us feedback, handwritten notes for the best part, but everyone's like, okay, so where is the detailed 10-page report or 20-page report? It's not something I ever received at CUSAC, but now that we want to jump in. And thank you for the comments.
I just want to comment a little on that 91, that there's a good portion of those points that come from our state testing, which Mr. Garcia spoke about. We haven't had new state testing since the last time we were CUSAC, so a good portion of the data for that case was the same. So there really was no possibility really for us to improve on certain portions of that. The actual curricular piece itself, we got 100% of the points for our curriculum. It was that other area which, again, sort of we inherited from the last CUSAC.
Thank you. But yeah, I think those were the wonderful, and I recommend the case for Joe.
Thank you all. Anyone in the public? Any, either? Telegram? Telegram? Okay. We will now turn to board comments on the agenda items. Read.
Hello? Okay, so thank you. When the superintendent presented the Ribbon website, he said that the cost would be the same as we pay currently, but there will be a setup fee. However, on the agenda for 10Q, it says that we're paying $22,700, while on the old website we used to pay $11,820. That's a 92% increase. So is there a way to maybe I misunderstood something?
Yes, at first glance, that's what it looks like, but it's not accurate, because what I explained to the board was, we also have a school messenger where we do notifications to the community all the time, and we pay $10,000 for it as well. The new website is actually going to include that feature in there, so it's going to be a wash, give or take $900. So we're not going to pay for school messenger, we're not going to pay for our website. This new website has it all rolled into one, so there's only a $900 difference.
Okay, my second question is, for 10B, the violence, that the district wants to discard 1.8 violence through 8 basses, 5 trombones, and 3 keyboards. Who certified that they will be on music?
What was the question?
Who certified that they cannot be fixed? How did we discover that they cannot be fixed? Why?
It was a recommendation from our music department.
Okay. Did anybody go to a violin or someone who's actually fixes them and say, can they be fixed? Or get an estimate, how much they would cost to fix?
No, but if you know somebody that would like them, I'd be happy to pull this from the agenda tonight, and you can let us know, and we'd be happy to donate them if somebody wants them. I have no problem pulling this from the agenda, if you know somebody.
I would love for them to be pulled for one reason, because as a student, as a violin student in Fairlawn High School myself, buying a violin when we came to this school district was an expense that my old district, they provided to us without a problem. For the people that didn't have money, no problem, you want a violin, you want to play bass, you want to, here you go, the instrument, enjoy. So I want to pull it and see how much it actually costs to fix, and if we can actually save for our students that are coming in from Queens, from other parts where they can't afford a rental, so they can actually be able to use those instruments.
I'll pull it, but before I pull it, I'll pull it and I'll speak to the administration of it, because I'm not sure if I'm going to pull it and then see if we're going to repair them without speaking to the key stakeholders in this. Because we may have enough violins in the district as it is. Maybe we get donated to somebody that wants the violins. But we'll do a little research on it before just going to get repair prices and something we may not need or we may not want. So I understand, that you use them in high school stuff, but it may be a little different now. So I'd like to speak with our administrators in charge of the music program first. Let's pull this from the agenda.
Thank you. My next question is, the airmark markup. What's the airmark markup? It's 10H.
John, would you like to, I believe we answered answered this question, in agenda questions this week, but we'll answer. John?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm reading it wrong. You're increasing the rate. The contract was supposed to be expired on June 30th, 2025, and you're increasing the rate. But what is the markup? So the person is getting $17. What are we actually paying for that to get that $17? Does that make sense? Like for the sub-services, we pay 20% markup. Is that the same thing for Airmark?
That I got to research further. You know, the calculations were done to basically increase the custodial cost by $1 per hour, given the fact that we're having issues filling open positions. I think at the time it was 7.5 positions open. We went through the 21-22 school year with a lot of positions open. We did do an analysis through our consultant who showed us that we were one of the lowest paying districts that did outsource custodial services. And it was recommended that the hourly rate be increased by $1. The markup that you're speaking about would be the management fee, which I don't think necessarily changes based on well, I'm thinking of it as a food service, but I can look at that and get back.
I have a question. Wasn't this already answered in the email?
No.
This particular question?
It's a different question.
Not the markup? Just, okay, I apologize.
I have is who hires for Airmark? Do Airmark actually hire people or does Fairmont actually?
Airmark hires people.
Do they couldn't fill the position?
They could not.
But isn't that part of their contract? So if it's their contract, isn't that they have to fill an obligation, contractual obligation to find the people?
Well, I understand. What I'm saying is that they can't find the people. I don't know where they could pull the people from. You know, if they don't have somebody who's willing to do the job, then we don't. I don't know if they could just create something. You know what I'm saying? But no, I'm not trying to be conceited. I'm just saying I don't. If they can't find somebody who's willing to work for the rate that we're offering, you know, we do reconciliation with them at the end of the year based on the employees that they provided versus what we paid out. And then and that's part of the reason why we're actually able to afford this with the reconciliation that was done last year because of the fact that we didn't have all the employees in.
Thank you, John.
6H, the Summer Learning Academy enrollment, I think that's great. I'm just curious, what's the enrollment, like we say 100 students will, how much what percent of the students actually attend the Summer Learning Academy?
I don't have that number on me right now.
Is there a work you guys can last year at least so that we can have a review?
What are you looking at?
6H. It's the Summer Learning Academy.
7H.
I'm sorry. I think it was last year.
You want to know the percentage of students that
Actually,
attend?
actually.
How many students are in the program, do you want to know?
No, how many actually come and actually do it? Maybe we have 1,000 students and only 100 students actually come and install, correct?
Yeah. So you're asking me how many students attend?
Actually, physically are present, attend.
Yes.
Yes, that's what, you know.
We'll get those numbers before.
I have two more questions. 6F, the fifth grade history book. My first question is, does the fifth grade currently have a history book? No. So they don't have a history book. So this will be a new. Correct. Okay. Okay. I have two more questions. The 7A position, A1 and 7A16. When did these two positions approved? Like their new positions? 7A1 and 7A16. When were they approved? Since they're new positions.
The two new positions.
7A16 is a new position, I don't think that's the one.
Changes are?
7A17 and 7A1.
Yeah, these were built into the budget for enrollment numbers. They were part of our budget. if we ever had to decrease, class sizes. So we're keeping an eye on our enrollment numbers, and we can see that there is, those sections are getting really high, so that's why those positions are there. They're not replacement positions.
No, I'm happy that they're there, I'm happy, but I'm just curious, when did the actual board, before we have a position, I think we have to approve, that's why I'm just curious.
They were in the budget.
This budget.
They were in this one, yeah. If you go back and look at past budget presentations.
These were actually positions that were created for the 2021 school year, and in COVID, we had originally budgeted for 6 positions, and the grade actually middle school, elementary schools, and then during the COVID time period, they were not filled. We only actually filled 3 of those positions, and we were able to carry over for 2 years, and now with the increasing enrollment, the specific schools here, that's how it's
Last question is, it's the approval for we're re-approving
What number again?
we are re-approving our, for 6A. This was 6A6. My question is, the $250 for, it's parking and taxi. I'm just wondering, how did we come up with the $250 for parking and taxis if it was only 2 days? And it's for that line, it's safe for the people that are, but, and we shouldn't be using the jeepneys or something like that, so it's really more cost effective for taxpayers?
So, as explained, already to the board, but I'll explain it again. Just because I know that we have school board check. One, the jeepney's not always running, so at times you need to take a taxi or an Uber. 2, just because it's at the conference center doesn't mean that there's not other functions that we're attending or professional development opportunities that aren't always held at the convention center. So you are going back and forth several times in one day. So what we didn't want to do was budget too low, because that's happened before, and then everybody comes back for receipts, and it's, well, the board didn't approve that much money, so now you're out of pocket for the money. So we just kept it up a little bit higher, just in case. Yes, it is 2 days, but you'd be surprised at how much those receipts add up with all the different events you're going to. Yes, it is 3 days, 2 nights.
And one thing, in the beginning of the board meeting, we discussed how people will get 8 different things that they were priorities for the goals. Can you write at least like maybe a brief sentence or what actually will be accomplished in that goal? Because I may think CT is going to be, I don't know, coding, and you may think CT may be welding. They will be totally different thinking from what I think is there a way you can actually, like, at least give us a summary of what actually will be accomplished?
It'll be something along the lines of career and technical education, and then there's a sentence or 2 that explains.
Then
what it is.
explain what will be.
If whether you understand it or not, I don't have a crystal ball, but there will be a word that pretty much describes the goal with a sentence or 2 to back it up.
How it will be accomplished, correct?
No, not how it will be accomplished, but a sentence or 2 describing the goal. How it will be accomplished will be part of that August 22nd plan that we present to the board.
Thank you.
Any other board members on the agenda items? Seeing none. Oh, go ahead. I did not see you. Oh, yeah. Okay. So first of all, congratulations on the results. We're going to last year's rules. And then, so item 7A, I see we're missing. It's not a question, just a statement, that 7, 8, 9, and 10 are missing. They don't exist. It's just a statement, not a question.
Yeah, it's statement because we pulled it from the agenda before the meeting.
Okay. Yeah. 7, 8, 9, and 10 just don't exist. Then, question. I'm not sure if you can just.
There's a blank space in personnel, the person rescinded before the meeting, so we just pulled the date.
Well, 8 is 9 and 10 is compared to 2 days ago, just for the whole agenda, I know some changes were made.
what I'm aware of are, item 7A, there were a number of people who were added to the agenda, and they were kind of reshuffled in a different order. I know there is a education bus driver, and I know there is a new goal that will be contracted with. So these are the three changes to the agenda I'm aware of. Are there any other changes to the agenda that have been made over the past 48 hours?
Yes, they were all highlighted and up right before the meeting started. We pulled all the highlights off right before the meeting started. So as you know, in the past, we usually, the agenda goes out on Friday. Everything we add past that, we highlight and leave on the agenda, and then we pull it from there. If you want, I actually have a copy of the agenda with all the highlights on it. We're not going to hold up voting or anything. I'll give you a copy with the highlights.
Are you done? Yes. Okay, Joe, and read it again.
No, thank you. Just wanted to make a quick comment on 10J, the online tutoring services. I'm glad that we're kind of hopefully good for him tonight. For the entire year, the numbers that came back of nearly 1,000 sessions over just those 3 months that we had it, that's awesome. So I'm excited to see how students are able to improve those services through the entire school year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody who has this spoken, Ron?
So I just want to piggyback on that, because I spoke to about 10 people that have used it since, the people do tutoring are off the charts. They said the kids are so comfortable, they're in their homes, and everything's it's excellent. So, and thank us for doing it. So, I think you're shooting us as well, too.
Thank you. All right, any other board members who haven't spoken? You want to speak again?
Yes, two things. First of all, the tutor.com, it's for grades 5 through 12, but on the write-up, we have usage for kindergarten, first grade, and fourth grade. I'm a little confused, that page 3 and 4. Is that a typo, is it something?
No, it is for middle school, high school. The only thing I can surmise is maybe somebody gave them sibling access to it, and they use it while they're at home. But it really is just grades 5 to 12, and you know what? If they did, good for them.
I just wanted to know.
We did talk about at some point if we want to increase it to elementary levels, but for now, we just started with 5 to 12. They be consistent. Good for them.
My question is, for the chart, the bar chart, is it the number of people who used it or the number of sessions?
What?
The bar chart,
I don't know.
it's the number of sessions. How, is there a way to find out how many actually students use them a day? Because the number of sessions in the first, for April was only 15% of the total population that has access to it, and in May it was about 7%. So is there a way to do something that will advertise it a lot more by putting it on the website, by making it more, like, as clear, as much more,
Our goal, it's so new to us, I mean, remember, we started so late in the school year. Our goal is definitely for more people to utilize it. It was literally the end of the school year, by the time we got it up and running, and then before you knew it, the year was over. Our goal is for those numbers to really increase and promote it more, and you're hearing word of mouth on how many people like it. So I anticipate that will happen, but that'll be a conversation for when the school year starts, and how we get the word out there.
oh, one more thing. Is there a way we can, for the highlights, is there a way it can be kept for until the end? And if something is changed within the last 48 hours, it can totally be sent just to say 7A change, 7B change, 7C change, because I look at the agenda and I don't really have time, like, before that meeting to go through the agenda one more time, click every single one and see what's not, how it's.
We actually did that the first time, and the board I don't want to say complaining, but asked us not to do that because they received too many emails about the changes. So now we're not emailing about the changes anymore, we're highlighting them, and now we want to highlight what's the email about the changes. So what we'll do is we'll regroup as an administration, we'll discuss, and we'll let you know for the next meeting.
What I'm asking is just a list of a bullet point, that's what I'm looking for.
I understand, it's just not
Instead of
as,
like 20 emails,
Where's-
just one.
thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
On that point, I think you need to offer to get together with the administration, discuss it. I would to disagree with you that. I'm fine receiving 20 emails, I'm perfectly fine with this. Just want to stress that again.
All right, fine, thank you. All right, that's it on agenda comments. So, good on a motion to approve the prior minutes.
Someone second.
All in favor?
I got to abstain from the June 23rd. June 23rd.
Okay.
And I have to abstain from June 20th and June 23rd.
And I have to abstain from June 20th. So you're out of June 20th.
I was at June 23rd.
So is that.
And so was Drew.
Everybody else is denied, anything else to say? Okay. I have a motion for 6A through F. So,
Second. Five.
oh, sorry. Not my night. We talked about superintendent, I took 6 comments, okay. Well, let's do 6, we'll do that up for the motion, we'll go back to one. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarella?
Yes.
And this is on motion 6.
Right.
Yes, I know. Yes.
Mr. Hicken? Yes, you should abstain on your comments.
Yeah, I got to abstain on my apologies, thanks, John.
Yes, except abstain on myself for 666.
Ms. Blackwell?
Yes, abstain on myself.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes, and myself is
Ms. Village?
No on 6FA, and then I'm seeing myself on 6F.
Who's on your particular, 6M A?
6F is in blank.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes, abstain on myself for 6 days.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes, it's, abstain on myself.
And Mr. Bean?
Yes, abstain on myself. All right. Right then. 5A through D, have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
All right, can I roll call, please?
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Village?
Yeah.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Ms. Blackwell?
Yes.
Mr. Hicken?
Abstain on 5, D like David, yes on the rest.
Mr. Barbarella?
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
And Mr. Baker?
Yes. A motion for 7A through K.
So moved.
Second.
All right, roll call, please.
Mrs. Mahan?
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Ms. Blackwell?
Yes.
Ms. Village?
No on 7E5, E6, EF, and then, 5, 6, and 7. E4, E5, E6, and E7. Does that make sense?
7E7.
5 through 7. Yes. And then I will abstain on 7-1, 7-1A, 7A6, 7A7, 7A10, 7A11, 7A13, 13, 7A15 through 17. And that's, thank you.
7A15 through 7A17.
7A, 17, yeah, 15.
Yes on the rest?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Seven A, abstaining on the following. 7A1, 6, 11, 13, 15, 16, 17, 20, 21, 30. Now on 7A, now on 7E, we have 5, 6, and that was and 7, yes. 7, 5, 6, yes, it is.
Mr. Barbarola?
Yes.
And Mr. Van
Yes. Motion for 8A through C.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mrs. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Ms. Eldridge?
Eight, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarola?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
And Mr. Yan?
Yes. Motion for 9A through C.
So moved.
Second.
I made a mistake first time. Now roll call, please.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Ms. Eldridge?
Yes.
Mrs. Mann?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarola?
1-9, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
Mr. Van
Yes. Motion for 10A through 10S.
So moved.
Second.
And 10B, well, just 10B, the violin, was it just?
No, this is 10B as well. The entire 10B.
Even technology?
Just the music
It's just the music.
A lot of computers.
Just the music, just the music is amended 10B. Not include the music, but there's still the technology.
Yeah, oh, yeah, sorry. Roll call.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Mrs. Mann?
Yes.
Ms. Eldridge?
Come back to me,
Mr. Barbarola?
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush? Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Mr. Aiken?
Abstaining on 10D like David and 10G like George. Yes on everything else.
And Ms. Eldridge?
And vote no on 10G like George and no on 10D like Lee.
And for the rest?
Yes.
Mr. Van
Yes. A motion for number 11A.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Right, Mr. Aiken?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarola?
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
Mr. Waldowski?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Yes.
Ms. Eldridge?
Yes, but the previous one, can you not change the G and put it to an H? I'm sorry, I kind of. Sorry, I'm confused.
There was no on 10H.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yes on 10G.
Yes.
Oh,
You were yes on the left.
Yes, yes, I'm sorry.
And Mrs. Mann? Mrs. Mann?
I'm gonna say.
public comment on other business. Step up, state your name. Nothing to talk about online. Okay, no public comments. Board comments on other business. Rita.
And the first question is, last budget, we had allocated around $50,000 for enrichment programs for the elementary school kids. I was wondering if New Junior has created a plan for that yet?
So, I know we have a couple programs going right now, I believe. We looked into several programs, actually, and they were quite costly, and we were comfortable bringing them back to the board. They exorbitant cost for the board, for the families as well, when they were come set up shop, but then charge fees to the family. So we started looking into a couple of them, but we're just not there yet. You know that with bad science is going right now, I believe, over the summer. I think we had something else in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. But we are still looking at stuff for the future. Just like I said, some of those are just like astronomical like programs, but just they weren't very well.
Another question is, the last one you had brought up, JavaScript and coding classes for high school kids because they're doing basics, visual basics. Have anybody looked into updating coding classes with the industry at the current moment?
Not yet.
Is it something that the administration is considering?
We'll discuss it.
Okay. Is the REACH program, I was wondering, is the curriculum online? I had a hard time finding it.
No, the curriculum is not online.
Okay, then how do parents that have kids in the REACH program, if I'm a parent, I want to see the curriculum and anything my child learns. How do, is there a way we can actually add it to the district website, since anything that the students, like anything we teach them, we should have a curriculum and being able to show to the parents, hey, we're going to take and see with it, and it aligns with the standards, with the state standards.
So there are no REACH standards in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. This is above and beyond the typical curriculum, and we do have a description of the program that is online available for parents to look at.
Okay. Anything, even when I teach higher level things to my students, I'm able to connect them to the standards that are currently on the website. Even if they're higher level, there's still some linkage that I can include in the standard.
I hear you.
So I was wondering if it can actually be put online so that parents can see what their children are learning and how anything that is taught should be part of the standards.
There's a description of what the students are learning, and it is listed on the website under the Gifted and Talented tab.
How about the technology of starting grades 5 through 12? Is it online? Because I see that 1 through 4, it's very well done, but I couldn't find it.
There's actually a class for grades K through 4, and that's why you see curriculum for the course. And there's not a class in 5th through 8th. So those skills are incorporated into every single curricula. So if you look online at Atlas, you can certainly do a search and you can find those standards. It's part of CUSAC, which we just underwent, where you have to have certain standards incorporated across the curriculum K through 12. So we indeed do that, and that is online. It's not a separate course, that's why you don't see it that way.
Okay. How about students that are super gifted and would like to start learning coding or learning technology? Is there a way you can consider thinking about adding coding classes in the middle school to start getting them prepared for the high school? Because I think coding is something that is very important, especially now.
Did you say super gifted?
No, gifted. Like some kids just, I had a friend who was, a friend in my school, like a music program, my calculator to do all the math problems for me. That's what he enjoys doing.
We're talking about very individualized programs for students. I would recommend if there's something that a parent is asking about or wants to know about, that they should speak with their child's teacher, if it's the REACH teacher, if it's the principal. But we're kind of doing a broad stroke right now for all children. We're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit right now. So if there's a question on the gifted program, they told that they reach out to the correct person.
Last thing, For our board, we get, like every month, we have like a list of meetings. Can the public also get that on the website? Because it's so much easier for everyone to say, oh yeah, there's 4 meetings or there's 6, because there's only like, can there be a list where all the meetings for May, all the meetings for June, all the meetings that would be just listed on one set of papers? It's just easy for anybody to say, okay, let me put this.
We do a meeting date list, and the meeting date list is posted, and advertised, and hung up for all of our schools as well.
Where is it located? I'm sorry.
And we'll get back to that. I really don't want to spend time at this point, and I don't.
It's on the website.
So, does the board want me to do this now?
Right here, annual list of board meetings.
Okay, so it's it.
No, that's the board meetings, not like the.
There's a monthly meeting.
That's the monthly meeting, but that's not like, we have school, we have like, special sessions or anything else, nothing else is listed.
Monthly public meeting dates.
She wants, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, like committee dates and committee meetings.
Not committee meetings, like anything like special action meetings, any other meetings, any public meetings to be just put on one page so that everybody can see it.
Well, but the problem is there's only one public meeting per month unless we add it later. So it's not like for September we can put down a special action meeting. Right now, the only meeting in September is the public meeting. So as they're put on, as we, like the meeting from last earlier week, we advertise it and put it on the website. If Rita's on,
Yeah, I know.
If you go to the Board of Education, and you go to public meeting information, and public meeting notices, every meeting that we have in public is there. 7:25, special action meeting, 6:20, special meeting notice, they're all there. So we're advertising and we're posting them. Just may not be where everybody wants to see them, but they're advertising and posted. But, well,
I'm glad.
Let me try to explain what people are asking. The monthly notices, it's just the monthly meeting, there is no special action meetings. Sometimes we have special action meetings, they must run.
I'm looking at it. Public meeting information, 7:25, special action meeting.
All right, I think we spent enough time on this stuff. Something else, Glenn? Any other board members? Other business? Okay, seeing none. All right, we're done with closed session, right? Okay, no more closed session. Let's see, when's the next meeting? August 22nd?
22nd, work session district goals.
And then the public meeting is the 25th.
Correct.
All right, have a motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you.